The arena was already loud before the fighters touched gloves. Las Vegas, Saturday night. A sold-out UFC card under white-hot lights. The crowd wasn't here for nuance. They were here for violence, controlled, sanctioned, familiar. Two men stepped into the Octagon knowing exactly what was expected of them. Or so everyone thought. The fighter in red trunks was Evan Cole, a rising contender known for explosive finishes and relentless pressure. 28 years old, undefeated in his last 5 bouts. A fan favorite for his aggression and willingness to trade. Across from him stood Marcus Hale, older, methodical, a technician. A striker who trusted timing more than power. He had been here before. He knew how to survive chaos. The bell rang. The first round moved fast, too fast. Evan pressed forward immediately, cutting angles, throwing combinations that felt heavier than usual. Commentators praised his intensity. The crowd roared with approval. Marcus backed up, hands high, absorbing shots that didn't seem to slow Evan down. Then it happened. A right hand, clean, flush, perfectly timed. Marcus collapsed instantly. Not a stumble, not a delayed fall. Down. The referee dove in, waving it off. Medical staff rushed the cage. The crowd erupted, another knockout highlight for Evan Cole. Except Marcus didn't move. At first, no one panicked. Fighters get knocked out. It's part of the sport. But seconds passed. Then, a minute. The referee knelt. Doctors entered the Octagon. The cheers softened. Marcus's chest didn't rise. Within moments, the arena fell into an uneasy quiet rarely heard at a UFC event. Cameras cut away. Commentary stalled. The broadcast shifted to crowd shots and sponsor graphics. Backstage, panic replaced celebration. Marcus Hale was rushed to a nearby trauma center. He never regained consciousness. 3 hours later, at 3:17 a.m., doctors pronounced him dead. Cause: catastrophic brain injury. What should have been a career-defining victory became something else entirely. A death following a sanctioned fight. At dawn, the headlines were cautious. Fighter dies after bout. Tragic outcome shocks MMA community. But behind the scenes, another narrative was already forming. Because when medical examiners conducted the routine post-fight toxicology screening, standard procedure after a death in competition, they found something they weren't expecting. Not one substance, multiple stimulants, performance enhancers, traces of compounds explicitly banned by the UFC and athletic commissions. Substances that increase aggression, reduce fatigue, amplify power. Substances Evan Cole was never supposed to have in his system. And suddenly, the question shifted. This wasn't just about a tragic knockout anymore. It was about what entered the cage with him that night. By mid-morning, the Nevada Athletic Commission was alerted. By afternoon, the UFC had issued a brief statement expressing condolences and suspending all comment pending investigation. Evan Cole was told not to leave the state. His team stopped answering calls. And Marcus Hale's family began asking questions no one wanted to answer. This wasn't just a sports tragedy. It was the beginning of a criminal investigation. And it raised a terrifying possibility. What if this fight was never fair to begin with? If stories like this matter to you, where the line between sport and crime quietly disappears, liking the video and subscribing helps us keep uncovering them. We post sports true crime stories regularly, and watch till the end. The cases only get deeper from here. The toxicology report didn't arrive quietly. It arrived sealed, stamped, and hand-delivered to the Nevada Athletic Commission less than 48 hours after Marcus Hale's death. In cases like this, speed mattered not for headlines, but for accuracy. Degradation could muddy results. Delays could create doubt. There was no doubt here. The panel showed elevated levels of amphetamine-based stimulants, a synthetic compound known to heighten aggression and suppress fatigue, and trace amounts of an unapproved beta agonist, often used off-label to improve explosive power. None of it was legal. None of it was accidental contamination. More troubling was the timing. Blood analysis suggested ingestion within 12 hours of the fight. That meant Evan Cole didn't just test positive days later. He walked into the Octagon chemically altered. When the commission notified the UFC, the tone changed immediately. This was no longer a tragic outcome requiring sympathy statements and memorials. This was a potential violation of criminal statutes tied to competitive integrity and negligent harm. Investigators began with the obvious question: who knew? Evan Cole was brought in for questioning the following afternoon. Not arrested, not charged, but advised firmly to retain counsel. His attorney arrived with him, saying little, taking notes, watching carefully. Cole looked different without the roar of the crowd. No swagger, no bravado, just exhaustion and disbelief. He didn't deny the test. He denied intent. According to his statement, he'd been given a supplement stack by a private performance consultant, someone he'd worked with briefly during camp. The supplements, he claimed, were marketed as recovery aids. Legal, approved, safe. When asked for receipts, he hesitated. When asked for names, he paused longer. The consultant, Darren Klein, wasn't officially contracted by the UFC. He operated in a gray space, freelance, underground, recommended quietly between fighters looking for an edge without paperwork. Klein had vanished by the time investigators tried to reach him. Phone disconnected. Social media scrubbed. Apartment empty. That absence mattered. Because under Nevada law, knowingly entering a sanctioned bout while impaired by banned substances could constitute criminal negligence, especially if death resulted. The commission expanded the inquiry. They subpoenaed training camp records, interviewed coaches, pulled security footage from the fighter hotel. What they found complicated everything. Surveillance showed Evan Cole meeting someone in the hotel gym at 1:42 a.m., less than 24 hours before the fight. The man matched Klein's description. The exchange was brief. A handshake. A small bag passed discreetly between them. Cole claimed it contained electrolyte packets. The footage couldn't confirm that, but his blood work did. Meanwhile, Marcus Hale's autopsy revealed something equally unsettling. The blow that killed him was legal. The strike itself didn't break rules. But the force behind it, measured through injury patterns and comparative impact analysis, was abnormal. Higher than Cole's previous recorded knockouts. Higher than expected for an athlete of his frame. Experts wouldn't say the drugs caused the death. They said they could not rule out amplification. And, in legal terms, that distinction meant everything. Public reaction shifted sharply. Fans debated intent. Fighters demanded accountability. Media outlets questioned how often fighters slipped through testing windows. The UFC announced an internal review of pre-fight screening procedures, while distancing itself from the investigation. Evan Cole's sponsors pulled branding quietly. No announcements, no statements, just absence. And Marcus Hale's family did what grieving families often do when answers feel insufficient. They hired their own attorney. A wrongful death claim was filed not against the UFC, but against Evan Cole personally. The filing used careful language. It didn't accuse murder. It accused recklessness. Behind closed doors, prosecutors weighed their options. To charge or not charge hinged on one thing. Did Evan Cole know what he took and what it could do? Text messages recovered from his phone suggested uncertainty, questions, hesitation, but also something else. A message sent hours before the fight. I need to feel unstoppable tonight. That line became central. Not proof, but context. And context, in cases like this, can be lethal. As the investigation deepened, one truth became unavoidable. This was no longer about a single punch. It was about choices made long before the bell rang. By the third day after Marcus Hale's death, the case had split into two parallel paths. One was public, measured, carefully worded. The other moved quietly, behind subpoenas and sealed doors. The Nevada Attorney General's office opened a formal inquiry, not into the fight itself, but into whether Evan Cole entered the Octagon while knowingly impaired. That distinction mattered. A sanctioned bout carried protections. Recklessness did not. Investigators reconstructed the final 72 hours before the fight. Hotel key logs showed Evan Cole barely slept the night before weigh-ins. Security footage placed him in and out of the gym at odd hours. His coach confirmed that Cole insisted on extra activation work, claiming he felt unusually energized. Too energized. Training partners described him as wired, focused to a fault. One sparring partner said later, "It didn't feel like normal fight intensity. It felt sharp, like he was dialed past where you usually stop." None of that was illegal on its own, but combined with toxicology, it became evidence. Phone data filled in the rest. Messages between Cole and Darren Klein were partially recovered from cloud backups. Not enough to tell a full story, but enough to raise questions. One exchange stood out. "Klein, this will push you past the wall." "Cole, is it safe for commission?" "Klein, everyone uses variations. You'll be fine." That response mattered because it suggested awareness of risk, even if Cole didn't know the exact substance. Prosecutors debated whether willful blindness applied. Could a fighter claim innocence while actively avoiding clarity? Meanwhile, Marcus Hale's family watched everything unfold from a distance that felt unbearable. They didn't attend press conferences. They didn't issue statements. They focused on one thing: accountability. Their attorney requested independent neurological reviews. Those reports reinforced earlier findings. The strike was legal, but the physiological amplification likely increased force and reduced Cole's natural restraint mechanisms. Not certainty, but probability. And in criminal cases, probability shifts outcomes. The UFC cooperated selectively. They provided medical screening protocols, pre-fight testing windows, disclosure requirements. What they did not provide, at least not voluntarily, were internal communications about Evan Cole's camp that required subpoenas. Emails revealed concern from a junior medical officer flagged days before the fight. Cole's vitals are elevated beyond baseline. Recommend follow-up. No follow-up occurred. No explanation was documented. That omission became part of the investigation, not as guilt, but as negligence. The question prosecutors circled endlessly was deceptively simple. Was this an accident or a foreseeable consequence? Because if Evan Cole knowingly enhanced himself with banned substances, entered a fight, and delivered a lethal blow, then the Octagon was no longer just a sporting venue. It was a scene. Evan Cole was called in again, this time under caution. He repeated his claim. He didn't know what he took. He trusted someone he shouldn't have. He never intended harm. When asked why he didn't declare the supplements to officials, he had no answer. When asked why he deleted messages after the fight, he looked at his attorney. Silence followed. Public opinion fractured. Some fans defended him fiercely. Others called for prison. Fighters spoke in hushed tones about pressure, about how close the margins were, how tempting shortcuts became when careers depended on results. But Marcus Hale was gone. And the investigation was no longer abstract. It had a name, a date, a body. By the end of the week, prosecutors made a decision. They would proceed, not with murder, but with criminally negligent homicide, a charge that acknowledged tragedy without excusing responsibility. The announcement came quietly. No press conference, just a filing. And with it, the fight officially became a crime scene. The courtroom didn't feel like a sports venue. No banners, no chants, no adrenaline, just wooden benches, muted lighting, and a silence heavy enough to swallow every breath Evan Cole took as he sat beside his attorney. Across the aisle, Marcus Hale's family filled 2 rows. His mother clutched a folded program from his last fight. His father stared forward, unblinking, as if movement itself might break him. This was no longer about technique or toughness. It was about responsibility. The prosecution didn't open with violence. They opened with choice. They walked the jury through Evan Cole's final 48 hours, not emotionally, but methodically. Text messages, surveillance stills, supplement purchases, toxicology charts projected onto a screen that no one wanted to look at for too long. This case, the prosecutor said, is not about a punch. It's about entering a cage while knowingly altered and accepting the risk that comes with that decision. They avoided sensationalism. They didn't call Evan a killer. They called him reckless. The defense leaned on tradition. They reminded the jury that fighting is dangerous, that fighters consent to harm, that deaths, while rare, have happened before without criminal charges. They argued Evan Cole was misled, that he trusted the wrong people, that he never intended to cause harm. And for a moment, the room wavered, because intent matters. Then the prosecution called their final witness, a forensic pharmacologist. She spoke calmly, without judgment. She explained how the substances found in Evan's system affect impulse control, how they increase aggression while reducing fatigue signals, the body's natural braking system. These compounds don't make someone violent, she said. They make restraint less likely. That sentence landed hard, because restraint is the only thing that separates sport from catastrophe. When the jury left to deliberate, Evan Cole stared at the table in front of him. No cameras were allowed inside. No commentary followed the pause. Just waiting. 4 hours passed. Then 6. At 8:42 p.m., the jury returned. The foreperson stood. The verdict was read slowly. Guilty of criminally negligent homicide. Not murder, not manslaughter, but guilty. Evan Cole exhaled sharply, as if his body had been holding air since the bell rang weeks earlier. Marcus Hale's mother cried out, once, then covered her face. Sentencing followed days later. The judge acknowledged the complexity, the tragedy, the absence of malice, but she also made something clear. Professional fighters are entrusted with extraordinary power. When that power is chemically altered, consent no longer protects the outcome. The sentence, 8 years in state prison, permanent suspension from professional combat sports. No appeals pending, no comeback arc. When Evan Cole was led away, he didn't look angry. He looked hollow. A career built on knockouts ended in silence. And for the first time, the UFC Octagon felt very far away. Long after the verdict, the Octagon stayed the same. Same fence, same canvas, same lights. But the rules around it didn't. Within months of Evan Cole's conviction, athletic commissions across multiple states amended their protocols. Pre-fight screenings were expanded. Randomized testing windows were tightened. Independent oversight, once optional, became mandatory for main card fighters. Quietly, without ceremony, the sport admitted something it had resisted for years. Power without restraint is not competition. It's danger. Marcus Hale's name appeared on those policy documents only once, in the footnotes, but his absence was everywhere. Fighters talked about him in interviews, choosing words carefully. Coaches warned younger athletes about shortcuts. Gym owners banned freelance performance consultants outright. A line had been crossed, and no one wanted to step near it again. Evan Cole served his sentence at a medium-security facility outside Reno. No interviews, no podcasts, no redemption tour. His appeal was denied within the first year. The court ruled that responsibility did not require intent, only foreseeable risk. In prison intake forms, his profession was listed simply as former athlete. The body that once sold pay-per-views now lifted weights alone, without cameras, without chance, without purpose, beyond routine. The UFC never mentioned his name again, not officially, but behind closed doors. Executives reference the case often, especially when discussing safety, liability, and the thin line separating entertainment from harm. The Octagon, after all, is a promise that what happens inside it is controlled, that fighters are equal, that the risk is understood. Marcus Hale's death shattered that promise, because it revealed how easily the balance could tip when chemistry replaced discipline. For Marcus's family, the echo was quieter. They didn't campaign. They didn't advocate publicly. They attended memorials. They preserved footage. They lived with the knowledge that consent had limits, and those limits had been crossed. He didn't sign up to fight someone enhanced, his father said once. He signed up to fight a man. Years later, when a new generation of fighters passed through testing protocols, many never learned Marcus Hale's story in full. They didn't need to. The safeguards he left behind spoke for him. Every extra test, every delayed clearance, every canceled bout over unexplained readings. Those were his legacy. And the question this case leaves behind still hangs over combat sports. Unanswered, uncomfortable, necessary. How much advantage is too much before competition becomes something else entirely? Because the bell will always ring. The crowd will always cheer. But the responsibility that rests with the choices made long before the walk to the cage.